Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Preeti Kaur. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. Tensions continue to play out between US and Venezuela as Trump sends additional 10 stealth fighter planes to a growing military buildup in the Caribbean coastline. Trump rebrands defense with Department of War, signs order to rename Pentagon, sending a message of victory to the rest of the world. UK Prime Minister Starmer shakes up top team after Deputy Rayner quits. Foreign Minister Lammy moved to fill the post. Cooper and Mahmood also get new jobs. And in hockey, Asia Cup 2025, all eyes set on India as it's ready to take on China in a bid to reach the final. Tensions continue to play out between US and Venezuela as Trump sends additional 10 stealth fighter planes to a growing military buildup in the Caribbean. US has ordered the deployment of 10 F-35 fighter jets to a Puerto Rico airfield to conduct operations against drug cartels in a move likely to further inflame tensions in the region. The advanced fighter jets will be added to an already bristling US military presence in the southern Caribbean as President Trump carries out a campaign pledge to crack down on groups he blames for funneling drugs into the US. This development comes 3 days after US forces struck a boat that Trump said was carrying massive amounts of drugs from Venezuela, killing 11 people. The strike appeared to set the stage for a sustained military campaign in Latin America. US has also deployed warships and increased military operations in the southern Caribbean, and this week Trump has made cracking down on drug cartels a central goal of his administration. According to US Secretary of State Marco Rubio, the campaign is part of a sustained effort to disrupt drug trafficking routes, even as Venezuela denies any involvement in the incident. Despite the mounting international pressure, Venezuelans maintained their daily routines with remarkable calm. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro called for dialogue with Washington hours after President Donald Trump threatened to shoot down Venezuelan military jets if they posed a danger to US forces. Maduro dismissed US accusations linking his government to drug trafficking, calling the intelligence reports untrue and insisting that Venezuela is committed to combating narcotics. Venezuelan president has said that Venezuela has always been willing to talk, to engage in dialogue, but we demand respect. To emphasize the Pentagon's role in preventing conflict, US President Donald Trump signed an executive order to rename the Department of Defense as the Department of War. It was latest rebranding of the US military and included his decision to preside over an extraordinary military parade in downtown Washington, D.C., and to restore the original names of military bases that were changed after racial justice protests in 2020.
We've been talking about this Department of War. So we won the First World War, we won the Second World War, we won everything before that and in between, and then we decided to go woke and we changed the name to Department of Defense. So we're going Department of War.
The order would authorize Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and subordinate officials to use secondary titles such as Secretary of War and Deputy Secretary of War in official correspondence and public communications. And amid a new Israeli offensive, US is in deep negotiations with Hamas as Trump urged them to release all hostages held in Gaza, saying the situation will be tough and nasty if Hamas continues to hold Israeli hostages.
We're in very deep negotiation with Hamas. We said, let them all out right now, let them all out, and much better things will happen for them. But if you don't let them all out, it's going to be a tough situation. It's going to be nasty. That's my opinion. Israel's choice, but that's my opinion. They got to let them out.
According to Israeli tallies, Hamas took over 250 hostages into Gaza after an October 2023 attack in Israel that killed about 1,200 people. Trump had promised a quick end to the conflict in Gaza during his presidential campaign, but a resolution has been elusive. Hamas has said it would release some hostages for a temporary ceasefire, while Trump has repeatedly said that he wants the release of all hostages. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said the conflict in Gaza would only end if all hostages were released. Hamas was disarmed, Israel established security control over the enclave, and an alternative civilian administration set up. Hamas is demanding an end to the conflict and Israel's withdrawal from Gaza. Thailand's parliament on Friday elected Anutin Chanvirakul as the country's new prime minister, making him the nation's third leader since 2023. Backed by opposition People's Party, Chanvirakul will be in office for 4 months after promising to dissolve the parliament to hold fresh polls.
Days of political deadlock in Thailand broke on Friday when Parliament elected Anutin Charnvirakul as the country's new Prime Minister following the ouster of the dominant populist Shinawatra dynasty. The 58-year-old leader won 311 votes, securing a comfortable majority in the National Assembly's lower house, comprising 492 MPs. Chanvirakul's selection comes after his predecessor, Paithumtha Shinawatra of the Pure Thai Party, was dismissed from office by the court last week after being found guilty of ethics violations. Anutin's Bhum Jaitai was the second largest party in the ruling coalition led by Paithumtha's Pure Thai Party when he was Deputy Prime Minister. Anutin withdrew from the coalition in June after the damaging leak of a phone call between the Prime Minister Shinawatra and Cambodia's Hun Sen over a border dispute. The opposition People's Party backed Anutin's candidature. However, their support was given only on the condition that Parliament is dissolved within 4 months in order to hold fresh polls. Locals believe that it's time for change.
I strongly agree that it's time for a change. I believe something can be done to improve governance in these 4 months.
I think we should just let him take the lead for a bit. We'll see how it goes and decide later.
Anutin Charnvirakul hails from a prominent political and business family. He is best known for successfully lobbying for the decriminalization of cannabis in the country. With Thailand's stuttering economy, tensions with neighboring Cambodia and the spectre of political turmoil at home are the top challenges for Anutin. With agency inputs, Tripti Tripaঠি's report for DD India.
US President Donald Trump escalated his criticism of the European Union on Friday after Brussels fined Alphabet's Google $3.45 billion for alleged anti-competitive conduct in its ad tech business. Trump vowed to raise the issue directly with European Union officials and threatened potential trade retaliation while speaking to reporters at the White House.
We're upset with the European Union because of what's happening with not just Google, but with all of our big companies. They just, hit them with these these unbelievable fines, $17 billion and $14 billion. And they use that money to run Europe. It's almost become like common. It's almost become a yearly occurrence, like it's a tax.
Trump has further labelled the action unfair and discriminatory and also said that he's considering launching a Section 301 investigation, a legal tool under the 1974 Trade Act. The act allows the U.S. to penalize foreign measures deemed unjustifiable for burdensome to the American commerce. On its part, the European Commission said that Google favored its own display advertising technology services, reinforcing its AdX exchange's central role in ad tech supply chain and also enabling the company to charge high fee at the expense of rivals and publishers. The watchdog said that the conduct has persisted since 2014 and ordered Google to stop self-preferencing and address inherent conflicts of interest. Google has 60 days to present a compliance plan and a further 30 days to implement it. The company has criticized the European Union's decision and plans to appeal. The latest fine, compared with the record €4.3 billion penalty handed out to Google in 2018, €2.42 billion in 2017 and a €1.49 billion in 2019. Russian President Vladimir Putin warned that any Western military personnel deployed to Ukraine would be considered legitimate targets by Moscow. This follows French President Macron's announcement that 26 countries pledged post-war security guarantees to Ukraine, including the possible deployment of military forces for long-term stability. New Delhi has extended support for peaceful resolution of Ukraine war. We get you more in the next report by Mohammad Absarul Hassan.
In a stark warning, Russian President Vladimir Putin has declared that any Western military personnel deployed to Ukraine would be considered as legitimate targets by Moscow. Putin's remarks came just a day after French President Emmanuel Macron announced that 26 countries have pledged to provide post-war security guarantees to Ukraine, including possible deployment of forces.
Regarding the potential foreign military contingents in Ukraine, it is one of the root causes behind drawing Ukraine into NATO. Therefore, if some troops appear there, especially now during military operations, we proceed from the fact that these will be the legitimate targets for destruction.
At the Paris summit on Thursday, which brought together 35 leaders under the banner Coalition of the Willing, European allies reaffirmed their long-term commitment to Ukraine's security once a peace agreement is in place. President Macron said that the 26-nation coalition has pledged to deploy military forces by land, sea or air to help guarantee post-war stability.
26 countries have committed themselves to deploying troops in Ukraine as a reassurance force or to being present on ground, at sea or in the air to provide this reassurance to Ukrainian territory and to Ukraine the day after the ceasefire or peace.
The summit focused on finalizing a unified European stance on post-conflict security guarantees. Details of the US role in this framework are expected to be finalized in the coming days. Reacting swiftly, US President Donald Trump told reporters that the US and Russia are maintaining a very good dialogue following discussions with Ukrainian and European leaders. Kremlin, however, responded to the development, saying any potential talks between President Putin and President Zelensky would require substantial groundwork. Meanwhile, at the UN in New York, India reiterated its call for a peaceful resolution of Ukraine war. Addressing the UN General Assembly, India's permanent representative P. Harish said New Delhi continues to support all diplomatic efforts aimed at ending the conflict. In New Delhi, India extended support for early end and establishment of an enduring peace. The MEA spokesperson said India welcomes all the recent efforts towards establishing peace in Ukraine.
We welcome all the recent efforts towards establishing peace in Ukraine. We hope that all parties will proceed ahead constructively. India supports an early end of the conflict and the establishment of an enduring peace.
As tensions escalate and global leaders deliberate, the path to peace remains uncertain, but ongoing diplomacy, strategic dialogue, and unified international commitment may yet shape a stable post-war future for Ukraine. Mohammad Absarul Hassan's report for DD India.
UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer overhauled his ministerial team on Friday in a sweeping reshuffle intended to restore his authority after the resignation of his deputy, Angela Rayner. Rayner, a figurehead among Labour's left-wing base, quit after an investigation found that she had breached the ministerial code over the purchase of a flat in southern England. Her departure prompted Starmer to carry out the first major cabinet reshuffle of his stuttering 14-month-old premiership, during which the hard-right Reform UK party has overtaken Labour in popularity. Starmer replaced Rayner as deputy with Foreign Minister David Lammy, whose post as Britain's top diplomat will now be taken by Interior Minister Yvette Cooper, Downing Street announced. Justice Secretary Shabana Mahmood from Labour's right wing will succeed Cooper at the Home Office, while Lamy will also take on the Justice brief. Czech opposition politician Andrej Babiš launched his party's election campaign on Thursday, taking aim at the government of Prime Minister Peter Fiala and the European Union. Babiš said a government vote under ANO would be a defense against nonsense from Brussels. He also pledged to stop sending weapons to Ukraine. Opinion polls for next month's parliamentary election show ANO winning the most votes with over 30%. This time, as many as 7 parties could exceed the 5% threshold to win seats in parliament, meaning the next government is almost certain to be a coalition. The vote is scheduled for 3rd and 4th of October. Anti-government protesters clashed with riot police in Serbia after thousands earlier joined a demonstration in demand of elections. Police used tear gas and stun grenades to disperse the protesters in the area around the city. The protests are the latest of a now 10-month-long spate of demonstrations against the government. Thousands rallied in Novi Sad, the city where 16 people died in November 2024 when a train station roof collapsed. Protesters blame corruption for the disaster and are demanding early elections in hopes of ousting President Alexander Vučić and his SNS party. As dusk fell, thousands gathered in the city centre, silently holding their cell phone flashlights in remembrance of the disaster victims. Two powerful aftershocks struck eastern Afghanistan 12 hours apart, triggering fears of more deaths and destruction on Friday in a region where earthquakes have killed about 2,200 people as rescuers battle mountainous terrain and harsh weather. Survivors in the earthquake-prone region are scrambling for basic amenities as the United Nations and other agencies warn of a critical need for funds, food, medical supplies and shelter, with the World Health Organization seeking funds of $4 million. The latest aftershocks follow 2 earthquakes that ravaged a nation already crushed by war, poverty and shrinking aid. The Taliban administration estimated 2,205 deaths and 3,640 injuries by Thursday. Typhoon Pipa destroys at least 220 buildings in central Japan. The city received a series of disruptions. Tiles were blown off the roofs by strong winds. Utility poles collapsed and other incidents were also reported. The local Met Office warns of more torrential weather as the region is covered by developed rain clouds. Local police says an agricultural greenhouse was blown away by strong winds in Yaesu city, leaving a farmer with severe facial fracture. The prefectural government said that in the city, 6 houses were completely destroyed, while 34 other houses were partially damaged. You're watching DD India Live. We're heading for a short break, but after the break, days after his reaction on Modi-Putin-Xi summit photograph raised eyebrows, US President Donald Trump calls India-US ties very special. Stay with us for a quick roundup on the weather fury faced by hill states in the country. Carlos Alcaraz dispatches Novak Djokovic in a straight set to book final spot at the US Open. Welcome back. After the break, you're watching DD India Live. US President Donald Trump has described India-US ties as a very special relationship, saying he would always be friends with Prime Minister Narendra Modi.
With Modi, he's great. Prime Minister, he's great. I'll always be friends, but I just don't like what he's doing at this particular moment. But India and the United States have a special relationship. There's nothing to worry about.
The statement comes a day after Trump expressed frustration on social media, suggesting that India and Russia have effectively been lost to China. His comments came after the leaders of India, China and Russia, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, President Vladimir Putin and Chinese President Xi Jinping met at the SCO summit in China. Trump's post included a photograph of the three leaders together, remarking, and I quote, "Looks like we've lost India and Russia to deepest, darkest China. May they have a long and prosperous future together," and I unquote. Prime Minister Narendra Modi congratulated his Jamaican counterpart, Andrew Holness, for leading his party to poll victory for the third time in a row. Taking to social media platform X, Prime Minister Narendra Modi expressed his eagerness to deepen the friendship and cooperation between India and Jamaica. He wrote, and I quote him, "Heartiest congratulations to Dr. Andrew Holness on leading the Jamaican party to victory over the third consecutive time. Looking forward to deepening India-Jamaica bonds of friendship and further strengthening cooperation between our two countries." Prime Minister Modi's congratulatory message comes a day after Holness secured his third term following a close election on an island grappling with issues of corruption, inequality and economic challenges. Preliminary results showed Holness's Jamaica Labour Party winning at least 34 seats, while the opposition People's National Party, led by Mark Golding, secured at least 29 seats. Golding conceded defeat in a brief speech, acknowledging Holness's success despite his disappointment in the outcome. Other parties contesting the election included Jamaica Progressive Party, the United Independence Congress and 9 independent candidates. Chief of Army Staff General Upendra Dwivedi has lauded the recent GST reforms, saying these will give a major fillip to defence modernization, training and research and development, thereby further enhancing operational efficiency.
इंडियन आर्मी 3 चीजें देखती है। सबसे पहले रिसर्च एंड डेवलपमेंट, ट्रेनिंग और तीसरी चीज होती है मॉडर्नाइजेशन। तो रिसर्च एंड डेवलपमेंट की बात करें तो जैसे आपने देखा है कि हमारे आईडेक्स प्रोजेक्ट हैं, बहुत सारे प्रोजेक्ट हैं, तो जो रिसर्च एंड डेवलपमेंट में जो भी जीएसटी लगता है उस जीएसटी को रिफंड कर दिया जाएगा। तो इससे हमें बहुत फायदा होगा और बहुत लोग रिसर्च एंड डेवलपमेंट में अपना पैसा लगा सकेंगे। दूसरी बात, अगर आप देखिए जिसको हम ट्रेनिंग की बात करते हैं तो हमें बहुत सिमुलेटर यूज करने पड़ते हैं और ये सिमुलेटर अगर जीरो जीएसटी के साथ होते हैं तो हम बहुत ज्यादा सिमुलेटर खरीद सकेंगे और इसको पॉपुलेट कर सकेंगे या ज्यादा जनसंख्या को दे सकेंगे। तीसरी बात रही मॉडर्नाइजेशन। मॉडर्नाइजेशन अगर आप देखें तो हमारे पास हैवी इक्विपमेंट भी है और हमारे पास लाइट इक्विपमेंट भी है। हैवी इक्विपमेंट जो है उसमें चूंकि जीएसटी 18% से 5% हो गई है तो हमने जो मॉडर्नाइजेशन करना है, नया इक्विपमेंट बनाना है, अपग्रेड करना है, उसमें बहुत सहूलियत होगी। जो मिलिट्री यूएवीज हैं उसको चूंकि जीएसटी 0% कर दिया गया है उसको हमें बहुत बढ़ावा मिलेगा।
21st edition of the India-US Joint Military Exercise Youth Abhyas 2025 is underway in Alaska. The Indian contingent, comprising of personnel from the battalion of the Madras Regiment, training alongside soldiers from the US. Over 2 weeks, troops will rehearse a spectrum of tactical drills, including heli-borne operations, employment of surveillance resources and unmanned aerial systems, rock craft, mountain warfare, casualty evacuation, combat medical aid and the integrated use of artillery, aviation and electronic warfare systems. The exercise is underway in jointly planned and executed tactical maneuvers ranging from live fire exercises to high altitude warfare scenarios, with focus on improving capabilities for United Nations peacekeeping operations and strengthening preparedness for multi-domain challenges. The Met Department has predicted heavy rainfall in several states, including Himachal Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, Goa and Rajasthan. The Met Department issued a red alert for Gujarat, Eastern Rajasthan and Saurashtra and Kutch, predicting extremely heavy rainfall over the state. Meanwhile, an orange alert is in place for Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra and Goa. Though the threat of heavy rains has subsided considerably in Himachal Pradesh, the scars of devastation are deep. According to the Met Department, there is no warning of rain in any district of Himachal Pradesh for the next 24 hours. NDRF and SDRF teams have resumed search operations in Kullu town at the site of the landslide that had occurred on Thursday, where 7 people, including 1 NDRF personnel, lost their lives. Meanwhile, essential goods and medicine are being airlifted to the flung areas of Kinnaur, Kullu and Lahaul Spiti as landslides are still occurring as the mountains have been rendered brittle by the heavy rains. While news of much-needed relief is coming from Punjab, where weather is quite clear this morning after unprecedented rainfall claimed 43 people dead so far. However, 3 others are still missing. A central government team on Friday impacted and inspected the flood-affected areas in Pathankot district. The team visited the flooded region of Bamial sector along with several other locations in the district. They reviewed the flood situation and will submit a report to the centre. Rainfall and subsequent floodwaters have submerged 1,902 villages across 23 districts of the state so far. Punjab has experienced heavy rainfall 4 times since 1988, but this year's deluge is unparalleled. Let's talk of sports now. In the US Open, 5-time Grand Slam champion Carlos Alcaraz took down 24 times major winner Novak Djokovic with clinical precision to reach the US Open final. The 22-year-old Alcaraz advanced to his 3rd consecutive Grand Slam final with a 6-4, 7-6, 6-2 victory over the Serbian. He has won 45 of his last 47 matches and made the final at 8 straight tournaments. The Spaniard hasn't dropped a set as he pursues his 6th major title and 2nd at Flushing Meadows. He defeated Sinner at the French Open in June and lost to him at Wimbledon in July. Alcaraz will face either defending champion Sinner or number 25 Felix Auger-Aliassime for the championship on Sunday. Let's talk of hockey. In a bid to reach Hockey Asia Cup 2025 finals, the Indian men's hockey team will face China in its last match of Super Fours in Bihar's Rajgir on Saturday. A win or a draw will help India reach the final. India started their Super Fours with a 2-each draw against South Korea. Therefore, they tamed Malaysia 4-1. India are currently at the top of the Super Fours group with 4 points. They need to avoid a defeat to reach the final. That's it in this edition of DD India Live, but let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those of you on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app. This app is available on both Android and iOS platforms, and you can download the respective QR codes. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Preeti Kaur signing off, and from all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India Live.